Looks like it's 7, Chair Hansen. So whenever you're ready.
Okay, I am ready. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Town of Los Gatos Planning Commission meeting of Wednesday, October 14th, 2020 is now called to order. This meeting is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with the State of California Executive Order N-29-20 dated March 17th, 2020 regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. The live stream of this meeting may be viewed on Xfinity/Comcast Channel 15 and/or online as noted in the agenda. In accordance with the executive order, the public may only view the meeting on television and/or online and not in the council chambers. We are conducting tonight's meeting in a virtual setting using Zoom. All planning commissioners are participating and staff are participating from remote locations, and all voting will be conducted by roll call vote. Mr. Paulson, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Let the record reflect that all planning commissioners are present this evening.
Thank you very much. And just as a note, it's not on the agenda, but we normally say the Pledge of Allegiance at this point in the agenda, but that practice has been temporarily suspended due to the Zoom format of the meetings. So then we move to public participation. As the Planning Commission conducts this meeting this evening on behalf of the Town Council and residents of Los Gatos, we encourage active participation, which is essential for democracy and critical to the work of this Planning Commission. That participation can occur through, prior to a meeting, written comments about agenda items submitted to the staff are always welcome and helpful. And then during our meeting, there are 2 opportunities for the public to participate. During verbal communications, any individual may speak on a topic that is not on the agenda. And during the hearing on a specific agenda item, any member of the public may speak about that item that is on the agenda. If you wish to address the commission tonight during verbal communications or during the consideration of an agenda item, you must join the Zoom webinar via the link and password provided on page 2 of the staff report. When I announce the item for which you wish to speak, please click the raise hand feature in Zoom. And if you are participating by phone only, press *9 on your telephone keypad. When you're called to speak, please state your name and address for the record. However, it is also optional. You may choose to speak anonymously. In fairness to all who want to speak at the meeting, it is requested that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. So now we've come to the verbal communications portion of the meeting. Members of the public are invited to address the commission on any issue not on the agenda of tonight's meeting. Mr. Paulson, do we have anyone from the public that wishes to speak on items not on the agenda?
Chair Hansen, I do not see anyone raising their hand for items that are not on the agenda.
Okay, so that being the case, we will move on to the consent calendar. And we do have 2 items to be acted upon with a single motion. And these are the approval of the minutes from our last special meeting on September 28th, 2020, as well as the minutes from our brief continued meeting on September 23rd, 2020. Any member of the commission or any member of the public may choose to pull an item from the consent calendar for additional discussion during the meeting. Does any commission member or member of the public wish to pull an item from the consent calendar? Commissioner Barnett.
Yeah, but I'd like to pull from the consent calendar the minutes of September 28th.
Okay. All right, so then we will put the consent calendar into the regular agenda, and I will go ahead and actually, in the interest of, I think the applicant is here, we will hear that after the item that was originally scheduled for a public hearing. Okay, so then we will move on and we will go to the public hearing. And we will move on to item 3, which is considering an appeal of the, actually, Mr. Paulson, should we take a vote on the minutes of the 23rd or just consider both of those in the later on? Okay. All right, let's move on then. We will move on to item 3, which is considering an appeal of the replacement tree requirement for a tree removal permit on property zoned R1A. It is located at 205 Lester Lane. The APN is 424-17-015. tree removal permit T-20-074. The property owner, applicant, and appellant is Cynthia Jan. I'm not butchering your name, but you can tell us how we are doing. May I first see a show of hands from commissioners who have visited the site? Okay, are there any disclosures? Don't see any disclosures. So I understand Mr. Safdie will be giving the staff report.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. Before you tonight is an appeal of a tree removal permit at 205 Lester Lane, requesting to waive the replacement tree requirement. Town code requires tree replacements to offset the lost canopy when removing a tree, unless the tree is dead or has a tree risk rating of extreme or high, as determined by the town arborist. The town arborist did not determine the tree was dead, and no tree risk rating assessment was conducted by the town arborist or by the property owner. Therefore, the property owner is required to plant replacement trees per the issued tree removal permit. Based on the discussion provided in the staff report, staff recommends denial of the tree permit appeal to waive the replacement requirement. And this concludes staff's presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions. Additionally, the town arborist, Rob Molden, is also available if you guys have any questions for him as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Safdie. Commissioners, are there any questions for Mr. Safdie or the town arborist or staff? Otherwise, not seeing anyone unless. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So then we will now open the public hearing and first give the applicant appellant an opportunity to address the commission for up to 5 minutes. And I think I see the applicant appellant in the attendees list, Mr. Paulson.
Yes, I'm going to allow Cynthia to talk now. So Cynthia, you can unmute yourself and begin speaking.
Yes.
And you have up to 5 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
maybe a little louder.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I understand it. My appeal was denied and I still don't understand why, but the tree was considered to be deceased by the arborist that cut the tree. Obviously, it was not something that I knew 100%, but the tree was dangerous. It had dropped several limbs over my property several times in the past, most recently in January during the storms, and then just about a week or two before I requested to either trim the tree significantly or remove it. When the arborist removed it, without me asking him, he pointed out that the tree was rotted inside. And obviously the tree was leaning towards the neighbor's property at a considerate angle. And it would cause damage to either humans or property or animals. I think my appeal is reasonable. I have several trees in my property. I have more trees than any of my neighbors. I have trees in the front of my property, in the back of my property. I've seen my neighbors have very very few trees in their property. That doesn't justify that I shouldn't replace a tree, but the tree was deceased, and per the town code, if a tree is deceased, it doesn't require replacement. The town arborist did not come into my property, and as far as I know, the 3 council members that reported coming into my property recently, they couldn't have come because I keep my doors locked. My gates are locked. And so I'm not saying they didn't see it, but they would have seen it from the street, which is quite a bit of a distance. The same for the town arborist. He did not knock on my door when he was supposed to. I was waiting in my house, working from home, and he did not knock on my door, and I was surprised that he didn't.
Okay, did you have anything else you wanted to say on this in your 5 minutes?
Yes, so what I would like to say is I do consider my request to be reasonable, and that tree would have damaged my property or the neighbor's property. Or children, I have a dog, I have cats. My neighbor had pets and children. And so The tree was deceased. And I don't have a huge backyard. There are power lines running where that tree was. So if I put 3 trees there, these trees will grow again where the power lines are. And that causes a lot of pain, not just for me, but for the town, for PG&E to come in and continue to trim these trees every year. And I don't have a huge backyard, but I have a lot of trees, I can tell you that. And if someone would come into my backyard, I would open the gates and let them see how many trees I have in my backyard. And in my front yard, I have plenty. But thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you for your presentation. And do any of the commissioners have questions for Ms. Jan? Vice Chair Janoff.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jan, for your presentation. Just a point of clarification, you are arguing that the tree needed to be removed because of its shedding the branches and leaning, and you felt it was a danger. Is that correct?
There are several reasons, that being the primary reason. The tree was also leaning at an angle. I didn't measure the angle, but it must have been like 15 degrees towards my neighbor's backyard.
Okay, so the tree was permitted to be removed. And so I'm not clear what you're arguing now. The town arborist did agree to have, to give you a tree permit, a removal permit, and you have that, we have that documented in our package. Your presentation seems to indicate that you're arguing you should not have to replace the tree, but there is an alternative that there's an in lieu fee. So I'm curious how what your thinking is about the in lieu fee.
So correct. My request is not to replace the trees, not because of the cost to replace them, but there are several reasons. One is I did not know the significance of the disease that the tree had when I accepted a simple removal of the tree by the town allowing me a permit and me hiring someone to come and remove the tree. I knew the tree was a danger in my gut. And when the arborist removed the tree, he, without me asking, he pointed out that the tree was deceased, that it was actually a good idea for me to have had it removed. Also, there are power lines that come from the transformer that is in my backyard into my house. And this tree the branches were already leaning towards these. They would have, if one of those branches would have fallen on those lines, it would have happened. So my reasoning for requesting the no replacement is because in your code, a replacement is not needed when a tree is deceased.
So let me just clarify that you're using the word diseased and deceased, and it sounds like it's hard to understand.
Okay, I'm sorry about my accent.
Not a problem.
But my understanding of the word deceased, it comes from the same root, which is either Latin or Greek, and it means the same thing technically. D-I-S-E-A-S-E, deceased. It had a disease. It had fungus. It was rotted. And the arborist indicated that because the root, the core of the tree, so the trunk of the tree at the top was splitting in 2 major limbs. The water, when it rained, the water would come in between the 2 limbs, and what had done enough damage that the center of the tree trunk was rotted.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Okay, do any other commissioners have questions for the applicant appellant? Okay, I'm not, Commissioner Barnett.
Yes, Ms. Jan, it appeared from the photos that there were a lot of leaves on the branches before it was removed. Is that the case, or were there some branches that didn't have any leaves?
There were leaves also in the branches that fell. And so I am not the expert, but I wish the expert that came to the front of my house, and I understand it was COVID time, he didn't enforce himself to come in the backyard to look at the tree and the tree situation. What I'm going by is the expert that came and cut the tree. Without me asking him, he pointed out that the tree was rotted. To be honest with you, I was going to plant the 3 trees, no problem. But when he pointed out that the tree was rotted, I hesitated because I realized, wait a minute, there is a town code that says if a tree is deceased or has a disease or rotted or damaged to the point that it could cause significant harm to people or property, that I should not have to replace it. And I don't know who planted that tree in the 50s, but it's a black locust. It's a huge tree that should be planted in a huge property. I have a small backyard. It makes no sense. Actually, we had 2 of those black locusts in our backyard. One we cut several years ago and we replaced the trees with 3 trees. And that tree was leaning towards our house and it had a fungus. We replaced it, but this time I feel like it's too much. I mean, to not abide by the code. The code says if a tree is damaged, has disease, is a threat to property or people, that I shouldn't have to replace it. And it's not gonna cost them money.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you. I can replace it with natives. It's not an issue. It's just a matter of I shouldn't.
Okay, so thank you for your response, and I think you answered Commissioner Barnett's question. Do any other commissioners have questions for the applicant? I'm not seeing anyone with their hands raised, so we will move on and move to the public comments portion of the hearing. And we don't have a lot of people in attendance, but I will ask Mr. Paulson, do we have any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
Thank you, Chair Hansen. I do not see the other member of the public with his hand raised.
Okay, so then we will move on, and then we move back to the applicant, and you would get additional 3 minutes to speak on this item. Normally, you would use that to address any comments from the public. But if you feel that there's something that you hadn't said that you want to say before the commission begins to discuss and deliberate the issue, this would be the time to do that.
Not other than just to repeat myself, for me to put 3 trees where that tree was, because I don't have any other space in my backyard or my front yard to put trees, it will create another issue because I have power lines coming into my property. And I have so many trees. My neighbors have far less trees than I have. I don't understand why a tree that is damaged, deceased, that will cause significant damage to property and people does to benefit the town. I would like to see more trees in the town. I don't know what I can do. I mean, it sounds to me that the town has already decided that I have to replace that tree, that there is nothing I can do now to stop that. But I feel like the code speaks loud and clear that if the tree was deceased, that I shouldn't have to replace it. And it was COVID time. And so the town arborist decided not to come in my backyard, and I was waiting for him. But for whatever reason, maybe he was scared.
Okay, was there anything else you wanted to say on this?
No, that's, thank you very much for your time.
I do have one question for you, for myself, and that is, did you consider, you said that the people that cut down the tree, you said they were arborists, but did you consider getting a written opinion from them? Because normally in situations like this, we would ask that a licensed arborist make these claims, even though, you know, I know you saw what you saw. Yes. Yes,
they are. They gave me a letter. He gave me a letter of his opinion, and I provided it to, I believe, Mr. Safdie, maybe, with his assessment that the tree was deceased and it was rotted. What else? The reason I requested for a removal and not a trimming was because when I spoke with the arborist, he said trimming it will make the tree look worse. And he showed me there is a tree down the street from my house where the neighbors trimmed the limbs of this tree and it looks horrible. They pretty much killed the tree in a horrible way.
I think you answered my question. Thank you. Vice Chair Janoff also has a question for you.
Yeah, thank you. Just a follow-up question. You've commented about the reasons why you feel it's inappropriate to replace the tree that was taken down with the 3 replacement trees. Are you aware that there is an in lieu alternative, which means that you don't have to replace the 3 trees? You just pay the town the cost of those trees so the tree can use those funds to plant trees elsewhere.
Yes, but I work in medical devices and I deal with the FDA and the code. And so your code specifically says that if a tree is diseased or poses a danger, that I don't have to replace it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do any other commissioners have questions for the applicant appellant? Okay, seeing none, then we will now close the public portion of the hearing and ask if any commissioners have questions of staff, wish to comment on the application, or introduce a motion for consideration by the commission. Okay. Vice Chair Janoff.
Could I defer to Commissioner Birch, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed you raising your hand. Commissioner Birch.
That's okay. That's okay. I did want to ask about the fact that it sounds like the town arborist didn't go into the backyard. Therefore, obviously, that would be pretty difficult to take a look at, the base of the tree, if there were any exposed roots and what those conditions were. I was wondering if we could get a little bit more on that.
Thank you. So let's see if we can get Mr. Molden. We'll ask him to unmute.
Yeah, I've unmuted. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay. You had a question about me going in the backyard? Yes, I knocked on the door. The dog was barking. I waited outside for about 5 minutes and I left. But I had looked at the tree from outside and I went around the corner and looked at it. It was lush, it was green, but I gave the permit. And if you look at the permit, the reasons I gave for the removal was that they were worried about life and limb. And also it was by the power lines. Those are 2 reasons that anytime we start talking about life and limb, I am very careful about giving a permit. If that tree, just for your information, if that tree was out somewhere where there was a lot of room, I would have denied it. There's what you see in the pictures, the rot, very common in black locust trees. They're a tree that's got a pith in the middle that runs through all the limbs, just for your information. Anyone I've ever removed has that little round rotted part. It's like a little mush. That tree, if you look at it, was solid. So anyway, I was just following the town code, which says if it meets that criteria, which were numbers 4 and 5, then I give the permit. And based on the canopy space is how I came up with 3 15-gallon replacement trees. I actually cut a break on that because it should have been 4, but I thought, okay, let's, I usually try and err, as far as going replacements, what's less stress on the applicant. I think that answers your question.
It does. Thanks so much.
Vice Chair Janoff.
Thank you. Question for the arborist. Mr. Molden, when you look at the tree initially, or even considering the circle of disease that's shown in the stump photograph, you said that that's typical, and that would would you say that the tree was dead?
Oh, absolutely not. It was lush.
Okay.
You can look at that on Google Earth, and you can see that tree, very few dead branches in it, but a couple had failed in a wind event, which we had trees that failed all over town, that same event. So, I mean, it was heavy, and that's why I gave her the permit.
So let me, if I could ask a follow-up question. In our, the town information regarding requirements to replace the tree, it says that the exception is given if the tree is dead, and you've indicated that the tree was not dead, or at high or extreme risk of failure. Is it your opinion that the tree itself was at an extreme risk of failure?
No, it wasn't my opinion. Trees shed limbs in wind events. That's something that happens, especially if they're not maintained. And I didn't get the idea that that tree has been trimmed recently or within the last 5 years or so.
All right, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I had a question for staff. Maybe it's the arborist or someone else in staff. But so my question is, given the situation that's posed, supposing that when the tree was cut down, it actually was dead and not having just the characteristics of that, what could the applicant have done to pursue that? Get a licensed herbalist come out and give a professional opinion, or like, what is there something that could have been done, or was this just unavoidable? Yeah.
Well, anytime I go out, if a tree is dead or it's falling over, we give the permit on the spot. When I came out and I looked at this tree, it didn't meet. I wasn't in any hurry to give a permit. It met my criteria for removal, but we never dead trees that fell over. We don't require people to replant. We only require when people are removing help. Every tree that we give a permit for has problems, has issues. We do about 200 of them a year. And every single one of those we require replacements. It's unless they are dead or they have fell over or they're ready to fall over.
Okay, so it was their opinion that there was no way that the tree was dead, even though the applicant appellant felt that the tree was dead once it was cut down, and her tree cutter, people said that it was probably dead.
Yeah, you would never have seen that rot until you cut the tree down. It was inside of the tree.
Okay, so there was no way to determine if it was dead until it was cut down.
No, it was lush.
Okay, and what you saw was lush, and so it couldn't have been dead.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, I think that answered my question. Do any other commissioners have questions of staff?
And through the chair, this is Joel. I see the appellant having her hand raised, but unfortunately the public hearing has been closed, so we don't allow appellants to speak any further.
Okay, thank you for making that clarification, because that is the case, because I did say that I had closed the public hearing. So at this point, what remains is that the commissioners can ask additional questions. They can comment on the application, or someone can introduce a motion for consideration by the commission. So would anyone like to comment on the application? Maybe start with that versus a motion. Commissioner Birch.
Yes. I think my comments would be that based on even the photos included here, I actually have seen where that house is a number of times. It's actually along one of my walking paths. And with what the arborist has shared, I don't think that we should uphold the appeal. I think that that while I understand completely maybe some reluctance to plant the additional trees in the backyard. There are power lines going over there. It is kind of a tight space. However, that's why we have the in lieu fee. And that way, maybe there are areas where we would really appreciate some newer trees, and they could be planted there. I think that that is the good option here. And that is what I would ask that we, sorry, I had notes and now I've lost them. So I'm sorry if I'm a little scattered. I would like to make sure that we withhold that.
Well, those are excellent comments, and I agree. Would you like to turn that into a motion, or would you prefer?
That's what I was trying to find to do. If somebody can find it faster, please jump ahead.
Commissioner Badami has her hand up. So,
all right, I'll go ahead and try a motion then, because I happen to agree with both of you. So I move to deny the appeal of tree removal permit T-20-074. I can make the required findings for CEQA. And that's my motion.
all right, do I have a second? And it looks like Commissioner Birch will make a second.
I will second that. Thank you, Commissioner Badami, for finding those notes faster than I could.
Okay. Do any other commissioners wish to comment on the application before we take our roll call vote? I'm not seeing anyone with their hands raised, so I will go with the roll call vote, and please answer yes, no, or abstain. And I will start with Commissioner Badami.
Yes.
And then Commissioner Tabana.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Birch,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudis,
I'll abstain. As I indicated, I wasn't able to do a site visit.
okay, Commissioner Barnett,
Yes.
Vice Chair Janoff,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So it passes 6-0-1 abstention. So thank you for that. And Director Paulson, does the applicant appellant have appeal rights?
Yes, thank you, Chair Hansen. Anyone who's not satisfied with the decision of the Planning Commission can appeal that decision to the Town Council. The forms are available online. They must be submitted within 10 days, and there is a fee for filing the appeal.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so we will go back to the other item that is now on the agenda, which was originally on the consent calendar, and that would be the approval of the minutes from September 23rd, which was a continuance to the meeting of September 28th, and as well as the meeting of September 28th. So I will ask Commissioner Barnett to talk about the issues that he had so that we can start the discussion.
Thank you. I have one concern regarding the minutes of the meeting of September 28th. It's at the top of page 4 of the agenda, and specifically involves the motion made by Commissioner Hudis to deny the request for modification of the architectural and site application. And my concern is that a number of specific findings were proposed and which were approved in the motion by a majority of the commission. And I think that given the importance of this issue, that the findings should become part of the minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to ask staff. I mean, I know we have the action-oriented minutes, but is that something that we can do in this particular case if it's the will of the rest of the commission?
We can do that. Obviously, the item has been appealed, so verbatim minutes were prepared, so those will be part of the record as well. So not just the action minutes of the Planning Commission, but if the commission in this particular instance would like to have those illustrated, we can do that.
Okay, so I would like to ask, so if that was clear, the decision of September 20th was appealed and will be heard by Town Council. There will be verbatim minutes. And then there's also the video of the meeting in which you can go and watch every detail of the meeting if you choose to do so. So would you still, given that you heard that, Commissioner Barnett, would you still prefer to have the details of the motion in the minutes?
No, I'll withdraw the request for the inclusion of the findings in the minutes.
All right, so that being the case, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of September 23rd as well as September 28th with the knowledge that that there are that those additional follow-up things that will happen? Commissioner Badami.
I move to approve the consent items number 1 and number 2, the minutes of the September 23rd, 2020 Planning Commission meeting, along with the minutes of the September 28th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, and do I have a second? Commissioner Tabana.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any further discussion before we take our roll call vote? Okay, I don't see anyone with their hand up. So I will go with Commissioner Badami,
Yes.
Commissioner Tabana,
Yes.
Commissioner Birch was recused. So let's see, Commissioner Hudis.
No.
Nope, okay. And Commissioner Barnett,
Yes.
Vice Chair Janoff.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. All right, so that means it passes 5-0. Do we count someone that's recused? Director Paulson, I can't remember.
So it would be 5-1.
Or 5-1, I mean.
Commissioner Hudis, and then we would just note the one abstention from Commissioner Birch.
Okay, very good. Okay, all right. So we will now move on to, that was the last item on our agenda for this evening in terms of public hearings. So we will move on to the report from the Director of Community Development.
Thank you, Chair Hansen. So on October 6th, the Town Council held a meeting. At that meeting, they considered the Planning Commission's recommendations for modifications to the BMP program as well as for lighting. Both of those were introduced and they will be heard for their second reading and approval on October 20th. Additionally, on October 6th, there was also a discussion about economic recovery efforts, and the Town Council provided direction to staff on some items moving forward. Next week, as was previously mentioned, the BMP and lighting will go back for their adoption. Additionally, the appeal of the decision of the Planning Commission for the North 40 modification will also be heard at that meeting. And finally, they will also hear the recommendation from the Planning Commission on the Hillside Development Standards and Guidelines recommendations that you made at a previous meeting. And lastly, I just wanted to mention that on October 22nd, there will be a community workshop to look at community culture. This is the third in a series that has been held by the town. So if you're able or interested in participating or viewing that, then that will be at October 22nd at 7 p.m. There will be via Zoom. So that information is available on the town's website. And if you have any other questions, let me know.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Paulson. Commissioner Hudis has a question for you.
Yes, thank you. Regarding the appeal of the denial of the North 40 parking garage, the part of the findings and one of the concerns was the inconsistency of the numbers that were presented in the application as complete. It included numbers from several dates that didn't match each other, and one of the findings and concerns was about that. And I know there was a suggestion that was discussed to do an independent audit of the parking spaces that are on the plans. Is that part of the appeal to do an audit like that?
It is not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do any other commissioners have questions for Director Paulson? Okay, all right. So then we will move on to the subcommittee reports. In addition to their service on the Planning Commission, members of the commission serve on several town committees. Are there any reports from our subcommittees? There's the Conceptual Development Advisory Committee. I know there was a meeting today. And then I believe there was Historic Preservation, and then I will talk about General Plan Advisory Committee. So Commissioner Barnett, would you talk about Conceptual Development Advisory Committee?
Yeah, the Conceptual Development Advisory Committee did meet today to discuss the subdivision of one lot into 3. The property is at 15299 Top of the Hill Court. It's also been referred to as the road, but it's the court. It's 16 acres, and the applicant was proposing a release from the Williamson Act, a zoning change from RC to HR 2.5, and a general plan amendment to change the designation from agricultural to hillside residential, and for approval of a new driveway. So all those issues were discussed by the commission, and a number of recommendations were made for consideration by the applicant.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, Commissioner Hudis, was there also a historic preservation meeting since our meeting on the 28th?
Not since then. There was one just prior.
Okay, and we probably talked about it then. All right, so the General Plan Advisory Committee did actually meet on October 1st, and we discussed the public infrastructure facilities element, and it was our second look at it. But nonetheless, it was a very long meeting. It went over 2 hours because people had a lot of comments. I think what we found, what we've been finding is that even though it's true that the 2020 general plan has been serving the town well, some of the policies are probably already covered or are maybe more prominent than they need to be, given that we're trying to look ahead to 2040. So that was kind of what took up some of our discussion. So there will be some changes to that as we go forward. We have another meeting tomorrow where we'll be going over the next draft of the environment and sustainability element. And then in November, we will be taking on the probably the most difficult items, which will be the land use and community design elements, which we haven't seen yet. So the General Plan Advisory Committee has been very, very busy. Okay, so, and then the last thing on our agenda is commission matters. And are there any matters that a commissioner wishes to present at this time? Okay, I don't see anyone with their hand out, but I have a couple things. I wanted to say first, in the case of the subcommittee on objective standards that we have formed, that Commissioner Birch has agreed to chair the subcommittee, and I hope they'll be meeting, if they haven't already, soon. So I'm really excited to hear more about that coming in the future. And then second, I did want to mention a couple things as follow-up for our meeting from September 28th. And the first one is something that Commissioner Hudis brought up in the comments in the commissioner matters of that meeting. And that is about submitting documents that are from the commission as part of deliberations. And we don't have it currently in our planning commission procedures to a deadline for doing that. You know, when the public has to submit comments, they have to submit to be in the addendum by the day before the meeting and by 11, and then the same is true of the day of the meeting for the desk item. But I do have a request. I don't know if we're going to be able to change the procedures for the planning commission or not, but I do want to ask going forward that I think for everybody's sake, it would be great if we could try and get those kinds of documents to the commission in advance of the meeting so that the applicant can look at them and staff can look at them and the commission can look at them, and versus having to kind of deliberate on the fly based on the information that we've seen that might be confusing because we haven't been able to look at all the numbers. So I'm just asking that as a request of the commission, if we can go forward, if you know that if you have information that you want to share with the commission and it's in writing, that you try and at least make the deadline of the desk item so that way at least it can be distributed in advance of the meeting. The other thing I wanted to mention on that point is it did occur to me, and we've talked, Vice Chair Janoff and I have talked to staff about this, that there's a lot of complex issues that are surrounding the North 40. And because of that, I think it would be helpful if we had some training for the commission, probably in early 2021, on things like the Housing Accountability Act and what they mean, because there will more than likely be more issues coming up around that. And some of the commissioners were on the Housing Element Advisory Board and other ones weren't. And so I think it, just for everyone's sake, it's probably helpful and also because of changing laws, I think it would be helpful to have some training for the commission in early 2021 so that we all kind of have the same level of understanding. So that was all I wanted to say. And so with that being said, I don't have anything else for us. And I want to thank you all for your participation in the meeting. And I will say we are adjourned. Thank you very much.